have to say that the last 2 years, on one hand, it feels like it just flew by and it feels like a week. On the other hand, it feels like a decade, considering how challenging these last 2 years have been. You know, in spite of, if we think about just a year ago today, California, it felt like I was at the bottom of a cliff, or we were on a truck going down a cliff, and we didn't know when or if we were going to hit the bottom. And although we're still dealing with the deficit, and you know we had votes yesterday on a partial solution to the immediate deficit, we are in a better situation than we were last year. And I think having served as Speaker in the state's worst fiscal crisis since the Great Depression, in spite of that, we were able to get some things done that I'm very proud of. I think about AB 1422 that saved health care for 600,000 children. One of the things I was able to participate in my role as Speaker, I sit on the regents, the UC regents, and also the trustees for the Cal State. And as a regent, we were able to begin the process of reopening Martin Luther King Hospital. I think about the water deal that we did, which was the first time there had been a water agreement in half a century. I think about the billions of dollars for economic stimulus, the ARA funding, and I was just recalling right before you came in that one of the first trips I made to DC was in '08, right after the president was elected, and there was talk of an economic stimulus, and there was talk of, you know, the bailouts were beginning. And I remember going back to DC going, how is it that we're bailing out these major corporations when we have the largest state in the union that's ready to fall apart? What about economic stimulus for states? I think about fighting to maintain the safety net, and although I did have to spend 2 years making very deep cuts that I could have never imagined when I came into office, that I actually would have been tearing apart the programs that I ran for office to expand and protect. But having said that, though, I do feel good that we were able to at least take the safety net programs and keep them alive, put them on life support, if you will, because I do hope long after I leave the Capitol that funding will be able to be restored. And I'm hoping that'll take place under the tenure of John Perez. I'm very excited that he will be the next Speaker and that he will also have longevity. He might serve through the 2 years, which I think the crisis is going to go on for a potential of another 2 years, but I think he'll be able to be around long enough to see a new day in California. A couple of other things that I feel good about that we were able to accomplish over the last couple of years, something that I ran for, one of my campaign promises, which was to try to protect film production in Los Angeles. My district, for example, entertainment industry is the #1 industry, and we did pass the tax credits to help keep movie production in California. And I've actually been on a couple of locations where they were filming, and they were actually filming in my district. Sony Studios is in my district. They were filming there, and they would have taken that overseas. And I also think about what we're trying to do now in terms of bipartisan support for Haiti, a bill that is making its way through the Senate that will allow people who contributed to the Haitian relief efforts to take credit in their '09 tax report. And so we're getting ready to step down my last few days of being Speaker. Next week I'll be upstairs as Speaker Emeritus and will begin a new phase in my life. You know that I have thrown my hat in the ring to run for Congress. My main frustration, without a doubt, is the economic crisis. I mean, I think about I was sworn in the day before the '08 May revise, and I was very worried about becoming Speaker in challenging economic times. None of us knew that the nation was headed for a crisis. And so I remember Alan Greenspan testifying before Congress, talking about he was surprised. So if Alan Greenspan was surprised, you know, certainly none of us knew, and that, without a doubt, was my biggest frustration. I have no regrets. I would have absolutely served. If you remember, at the time I ran for Speaker, I actually had an opportunity to have a 10-year stint in the Senate because I would have finished Ridley Thomas's term and then had 2 more terms to serve. And so I walked away from the possibility of being in elected office for 10 years. I had absolutely no clue a congressional seat would open up. But I am one that serves out of a calling and not out of a political ambition, you know, if you will. So I have no regrets. You know, it was definitely the two most difficult years that I've ever experienced politically, certainly not personally, but politically. But I was glad that I was there. Very glad.